Welcome to today's conversation on the return of experience era, where we're focusing on service excellence through experience management. So every organization can have come to the realization that experience is imperative as a competitive edge and not just as a soft skill to have. Customers want effortless service. Stakeholders want their return on investment. And so we really need to unpack what it means for us to deliver return on experience holistically for all stakeholders concerned. And I'm joined today by two amazing speakers and guests. On my left, I have Anne. Anne, please introduce yourself.
Hello, viewers. So my name is Nyachomba. I am a customer experience enthusiast and professional. So I run a consultancy called CXDI. We are a human-centered design, customer experience and AI consultancy. And customer experience is something that is really just so close to my heart. So excited to have this conversation.
Amazing, Anne, because it's important to also speak to AI and design thinking around return on experience. I'd like to now welcome Richie, who's on my right. Please introduce yourself and also tell us how you're feeling.
Thank you. I'm feeling excited. I think this is one topic that has really been a theme this year. We're moving away from the days when we used to just present reports and give dashboards to senior executives, and now we're being asked the hard questions of so what. So I like the conversation. I'm excited to be here. My name is Richie Sobayeni, and I'm a CX practitioner, and I have over 17 years of experience. I've been in various roles in customer experience, all the way from contact center to process reengineering, managing projects, systems implementation. And so I've cut across the entire CX spectrum, and this is quite an exciting conversation. Currently, I'm head of customer experience design for one of the banking groups in East Africa. And I'm also a director in ICX, which stands for Institute of Customer Experience, who are the reason we're here today.
Welcome, Richie, and welcome, Anne. I'll be your host, Cynthia Nkirote. I'm a seasoned customer experience professional. I thrive on human-centered design thinking, and I lead design at Absa Bank. So good to have you all joining us for this very important conversation. I think we'll start off with a very key question to both of you, Anne and Richie. Why the term return on experience, and why is it becoming such an important conversation today?
Okay,
we can start with
sure.
Anne.
Sure. So I think we have moved from the era where it was more about activities. Activities. Remember, there's a time we were very excited when organizations were adopting customer measures. The NPSs, the CSAT. That was the big conversation. And then from there were the SLA, service level agreements. There is a time companies were focusing on channels, expanding their channels, moving from serving customers in one area to many omni-channel, that is contact centers, digital. And that has become like the bare minimum in any company. And hence, the question is, with all those activities, investments, what exactly are companies getting out of it? So we are at that era where now we've invested the money, we've had a lot of conversation, but as a company, have we gained more trust? Have we become more profitable? Are our customers having an easier experience consuming our products or interacting with our brands? And I think that is where we are. That is why it's such a key conversation.
I totally love that. We need to move away from what we're doing. If we want to get different results, we need to do a lot more and do it differently. And what about you, Richie?
Yeah, I think organizations now have become very tuned into the fact that experiences actually bring a lot of value to the organization. A lot of leaders now understand that how customers, how employees, how partners, and other organizations that interact with them across their ecosystem, how they interact with them really matters. So if any of those parties interact with them better, then trust is built. Then things like engagements increase. The amount of retention increases. And so overall, the value to the organization in terms of how much they're growing, how much revenue they're receiving also increases. And so everyone is taking a note that experiences and how they're delivered to these people actually matter.
Amazing. Two words you've both used, trust, revenue. We need to quantify that, and we really look forward to, what then we need to do from what we'll unpack today to achieve that. And just maybe looking at where we're from, where we're really looking at return on investment and now return on experience. Why do you feel it's becoming more important, Richie?
I think it's not a question of moving away from return on investment to ROX. I think the terms can be used interchangeably only because both of them are speaking to what is the return on value, what is the value that we're getting out of our investment. But it's a change of mindset in the sense that we are now moving away from just the financial input that we put maybe in systems, that we put in hiring people. But we're saying, okay, beyond that, then how do those investments enhance our engagements, enhance our interactions with the various parties that are carrying out different activities in the organization? And overall, how does that then translate to how people interact with us when they're consuming our products and services? Now, so whatever then we put into that, if it's looking at how easy is it for customers, let's say, to access our products and services, how fast do we resolve the issues that they raise with us whenever they have any friction with us? If we look into that kind of investment, how does that then translate to value for the organization? And the whole essence is, if people find it easy to do business with you, if people find it easy to resolve issues when they experience friction with the organization, then they're more likely to spend more. They're more likely to retain the business that they give you and refer you to other people. And so overall, then it translates to growth for the organization.
If I see value, I don't see price, I don't see product. And maybe you could speak more to that. How is experience becoming more of a competitive advantage over price and product?
I think that's a really good question because one, of course, product is very important because the features are what are serving the customers, whatever they are trying to achieve. And the price is equally important because we have different customers who will be interested. People choose different things. Others will choose quality, others maybe it's a price conversation. However, both of them cannot work independently. I remember once upon a time, the adverts for the first ATM in Kenya. I know it's memorable in our minds, that dancing ATM. And it was such a fascinating thing. And today, a bank having an ATM is not a conversation. Same case for digital. It's not a conversation. It's what customers expect as a bare minimum. And so the only place where brands can compete and compete fairly is when it comes to service and service experience. And I mean, service delivery and around experience. And why do I say that? Because you cannot replicate a brand's culture. There's the way they show up, the way they listen, the way they understand or make their customer feel understood. There are things that you cannot replicate. So it then increasingly, beyond the product, the pricing, it becomes such a big point of conversation because people want to feel valued. And the reason why they like brand A over brand B half the time you'll find it's because of how they felt when they interacted with that brand.
I 100% agree. Customers will not compare you to their last experience. They'll compare you to their best experience. And we've seen that a lot. Like even when they're comparing your product to another product or your brand to another brand, they don't talk about what is offered there. They just talk about how they made them feel. And it's really, really important that we design around customers' needs, what we think they want. So maybe, Anne, you could speak to that. How do we truly design around customers' needs?
I think in this conversation, we're all very passionate about design. That is why in our introductions, there's a design somewhere. And I think what makes design when it comes to experiences important is you have to move beyond just having the insights. So after the insights, then what? After the insights, so what? Because what's happening, like I said, we have collected a lot of data, but question is, has that data supported brands to move to the next step? So if you have all this feedback telling you about a particular channel, so are you courageous enough to use that data to make decisions? So I think what makes good design is ensuring that beyond speaking to the customers, then you're actually using those insights and being courageous about it, because sometimes the expectations are very high. Like you said,
Yes.
they are not gauging you based on their experience in bank X vis-a-vis bank Y. They're also evaluating you based on that first class experience they had traveling somewhere. And so to them, they have that mentality because they've experienced, they know it's possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Thank you. Great insights right there. Brings together what Anne has spoken to and human-centered design thinking. Maybe Richie could just unpack that for us. What evidence tells you that an organization is genuinely customer-centered, and how do we move away from these mistakes we're making when we're designing our customer journeys?
Yeah, so the type of there are several mistakes. I would say three key mistakes that organizations encounter when they're looking into their customer journeys. The first one is we look at it from the boardroom perspective. So the board has given certain instructions around, we need to fix this. Or we've looked at it from a process map perspective. So there's a bit of friction around a certain process. So the organization will come at the customer journey from a point of they feel they already know what the pain points are. And so they'll design from an inward out point of view. And that's one big mistake that happens, because you don't really understand what the people on the ground are feeling. You don't know what the employees who are actually serving the customer and handling this interaction or process on a daily basis are going through. And you also don't know exactly how the customer feels about that. So that's one big mistake. The second one is we try to map out a journey and automate around a broken process. It's already broken, it's already inefficient, it already has a lot of loopholes for customers, but you pick that, you look at the journey and you decide, let's automate this, without looking into how do we make this journey easier, how do we make the journey more seamless for the customer, and especially around the digital space. So if you're digitizing a process, for instance, and that happens a lot, especially in the financial industry. We take a broken process that is currently being run at the branch, and we feel like if we just automate all of it, then the issues that customers are facing will disappear. And that's not the case. And then lastly, the lack of ownership beyond now just documentation of journeys. You need to have people owning the journeys. If it's a credit journey, why is it being owned by customer experience? You will never be able to have enough authority to fix the issues around credit. So then that should be owned by the respective owner who actually has ways in which they can fix that journey. And the same case applies to all manner of processes or any interaction that the customer is having with us. So if we are able to map out the right owners of the different interactions that a customer is having, then we can solve that problem.
When you're speaking, I'm just thinking there's so many things we need to stop, go back to the drawing board and start.
Yeah.
Because we need to get ownership right. We need to get move away from using broken processes to fix what's not working. Really, really, everyone is making that mistake.
Yeah,
almost everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what there's a name I used to use back in the day when I was doing business process management. It's called zero-based engineering. So just throw everything out. Start from scratch. Don't pick a process and start looking at the bits and pieces that you want to fix. I think sometimes you can do that for when you want to have quick wins, but in actual sense, if you're trying to maybe automate or digitize a process that is currently being done in a physical outlet, then you'd rather just start from scratch. Just look at how do you want to deliver this process on a digital platform, and map it out from scratch. You will then stop thinking within the guardrails of how the governance is done at a branch, for instance, how governance is done on an ATM. You know, you're delivering this on a digital platform. So the landscape is completely different. And so how you think about delivering it should also be different.
Don't come with the box. Don't even, it's no longer about thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
Throw it away.
Exactly.
So I think based on what you've said, Richie, it would be great to hear a transformative initiative that you did and how you were able to deliver it from a change perspective successfully.
Wow. Where do I pick from? So I think I've run a couple of transformational initiatives across different organizations. But I think the most impactful ones have been around how to deliver service to customers better. So you find that a lot of organizations have done huge investments in systems like CRM, but the percentage of utilization is almost close to nil, because the system has been delivered from an IT point of view, and the IT team implemented it with all good intentions. They were like, we want to increase efficiency for all you guys.
Yeah.
But the users don't really appreciate what this system can do. And so I've been involved in initiatives that then drive value around how do we deliver service, how do we build a single point of view for customers, so that then the person who's serving this customer gets a better picture of who they're serving. They have a better picture of what current engagements have happened with this customer, and also how this customer maybe already has an existing problem that has not been fixed. And so you don't go to them trying to sell a product and they're actually calling to follow up on an issue. So that has been one of the major initiatives that I feel has had the highest impact in the organizations I've worked in.
Perfect. And so relatable.
Yeah.
What about you, Anne?
No, from 20 years of experience across different industries, banking, insurance, technology, I think I'll pick one of my last assignments that we needed to do let me call it a whole system change, because there was technology. It was not delivering what it's meant to deliver. There's the person who has paid for the technology. Okay, now let me say the entity that has paid for the technology, and then there are the users. These are two different parties. And so the people who've paid for the technology are feeling this technology is not giving value for what we paid for. And the people who are receiving the technology are also thinking, these things that you came and dumped here, we don't even know what they are. So so one of the methodologies that we deployed is human-centered design. So it simply means getting to the heart of every stakeholder in this ecosystem. So it was a IoT technology within the healthcare space, public health for that matter. And so there is the ministries of health, then within just the Ministry of Health, there is the leadership, there is the technical guys, and then there is the guys at the hospitals. And then when you come on this other side, internally, there is the manufacturing side of it, there is the products. So there are many players because there is hardware and software involved. And so engaging all these stakeholders to figure out why isn't it working. And of course, you start with the actual users. And part of the things that we found out is some of the users, there used to be very high turnover, people moving from one facility to another. And so you'd find the person who was trained, after 6 months, they are no longer in that facility. A new person comes and there's this thing making noise, so they switch it off. So there was just a lot of moving pieces. So out of the outcome of what we found out, or rather, sorry, out of what we found out, the outcome we were seeking for is how then do we satisfy all these stakeholders. So it means product team needed to figure out how do we make the software better, how do we take care of the UX UI, how do we make sure that users are finding it easy, because different stakeholders will go to the system to do different things. So how do you meet all these needs without making it look very busy? And at the same time, the hardware part of it, what is that thing that was not working? So like for the IoT, they use sensors, and so the sensors sometimes were not as hardy as they are meant to, because the storage was in fridges, freezers, so there's a bit of dampness. And so now going back to the team for them to figure out how do we make this work. And then at the same time, at a larger scale, ownership was still an issue. So then going back to figure out how do we make sure that this technology, when it's handed over to a ministry, then they can figure out how do we make sure that if we own it at the top, then it means everybody at the bottom. So it was a lot of moving pieces, but I think it was one of the most exciting projects because of the complexity. You can imagine you're working with a timeline, the complexity of, you can see all those stakeholders, and at the end of the day, the most important thing was understanding the stakeholders, then coming back to tie the loose ends so that then the whole system is working. So just being able to solve experience issues from a human-centered approach.
Well said. And I think that's where we get it wrong. The investment comes in, and then we now have to grapple with optimizing it.
Yeah.
Because the users are like, what is this? Is it for me? The customers, don't even feel the value. So we really, when it comes to implementing those transformational optimizing those investments, it really begins with the user.
It's true.
And you've also now gone into employee experience, because in this case, most of the times the user is the person using that system who is the employee. And we always say employee experience is equals to a great customer experience.
Yeah.
Would you mind unpacking that a bit more for us?
Today, if you walk to most organizations, we have that beautiful thing that used to be done around 15 years ago called the service charter. I'm sure you've walked to offices and they have this statement that makes you feel this should be the best experience of my life. And then you start experiencing the experience. And they are so mismatched, nothing is speaking to the other.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that to say that for employee experience to work, it means that they need to have been empowered. So you could be saying all those things that you'll do for customers, customer first and what. But the person who is delivering the experience is the employee. Have you taken care of the processes that support them to deliver that experience? Some of those processes are so broken, like Richie said. They are broken, and we come and then put patches with in the name of digitizing without fixing them. The other thing is we don't empower them enough. So if I'm an employee, and for small decisions, I have to look for the supervisor of my supervisor of my supervisor for me to get an approval to even do maybe service recovery, something that probably the budget is minimal. It could have been a decision I make on the spot and then a report later. Like, are we putting systems and policies in place that support them? Because at the end of the day, a frustrated employee, the person who will experience that frustration is the customer. Because on the other side, there is Mary, who's been waiting for me to make a decision, but as I'm busy looking for this person who is in a meeting so that they can approve for me to forego that probably 200 shillings voucher or something. So it's empowerment. If they are not empowered, they will not deliver. And people, there are all those, and sometimes there are, of course, the softer issues. Half the time when you're doing sometimes when you're doing a design work, sometimes you end up talking to the users of the system. And sometimes, unintentionally, a lot of conversations will go. And half the time you find they will bring out even their challenges that are within purely HR angle as the reasons why they are not able to give good experiences. So what I'm trying to say is, for employee experience, support, systems, processes, empowerment is what will enable them to support the customer experience function, because it's the people who deliver. So if the people are unhappy, if they are unsupported, it will show on this other side.
Well said, Anne. Really, we have to empower our teams, the front line, and we have to make sure that they are able to solve and listen to the customers and support them at the table of service. When you think about the tools they use, again, it's speaking to technology. But Richie, it would be good to hear from you as well. What's your take on employee experience in terms of optimizing technologies in place or investments in place from an return on experience perspective?
Yeah, I think for a lot of, you find that a lot of investments that are done for technology are done from a point of view where we want to enhance a certain process and we want to deliver for the customer better. However, we don't look at how easy is it how easy are we making it for the person who's actually delivering that product or service to be able to engage the customer. So a lot of the systems look at how will the customer, the front end is always how is the customer engaging with us, especially for digital transformation projects. So we want the digital interface that the customer will use to be very friendly, very user-friendly, very intuitive, and so on and so forth. However, that same digital platform, if you asked the team that developed it, what back-end platform the contact center, for instance, is going to use, or the back office team is going to use, in most cases, they look surprised, they look confused. They're like, what do you mean? Because for them, the backend is the developer portal. This is what we used to put together this particular thing. And so our work as CX has been to look at how is the employee now going to be able to support these products and service, and how are they going to interact with that same platform. So we want a mirror of what is the customer seeing on the front end, and what is the agent, what is the support team seeing on the back end, so that then they can be able to also pinpoint what areas of friction the customer is engaging with, and how do we support them. So I think that's been the major challenge, I would say.
Really brought out the aspect of designing experiences intentionally from a human-centered perspective. And you're a guru in AI, and we are leaning into you to understand better what it takes to transform or transition to that aspect, and what's really exciting you in this space of AI.
So thank you. So Richie said something that triggered me. So before I get to AI, let me talk into it.
Yeah.
We talk about the expectations, because when digital products are coming, expectations are that there was business requirements that were picked. That means someone sat with the eventual expected users to take the requirements, so that now the developers can go and think what's the best way to approach this. And I think one of the things that really bothers me is that you realize half the time when the end user is doing is giving out the requirement, because the people who are running the project will always go to them. I think majority of the people are not present. You get what I mean? Like, they are not present. The end users, maybe it's a busy day, they are having a busy day. That's when they are trying to close 1,000,001 complaints or whatnot. And one of the biggest gap I've always seen is how they leave so much unsaid. And it's until the new system comes, they're like, guy, but it does not have this thing, it does not have this other thing. And I can almost imagine how frustrating that is for developers. So that was, by the way, a call to action to our peers that anytime when you're part of the team doing business requirement, be present. And being present means just being like, immerse yourself into whatever you want that system to do for you, so that then we make life for each and every person. That was by the way. So back to AI.
Very important. Very important.
Yes.
There's a role everyone plays.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even as we have, as designers, as we continue to have conversations of co-creating together, so the beginning also has to be, the baseline has to be right. So then even the work of the journey of co-creating then becomes easier.
Yes.
Because some co-creation almost feels like you're going back to the square.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And another thing actually, so as you're speaking about that, being present also goes hand in hand with having the right person in the room. So another thing is we usually delegate a lot of these things. We're like, I'm too busy as a leader.
Yes.
And so I'm going to send one of my juniors to go and sit into this workshop that is supposed to take half the day, for instance, or a full day. So you're feeling like your time will be locked in. You have two other more pressing issues, more priority things to do than to go and actually give requirements for a certain platform. And then at the end of the day, now you find that you sent an inexperienced person, someone who's probably never dealt with such a platform before. And so they don't have the context and they don't know what would go wrong. And so they'll give the bare minimum. Then at the end of the day, you're wondering, so how come this person didn't mention that we will need A, B, C, D? They didn't know. They really didn't know. For them, they thought this was it in terms of what we will need.
Yeah.
Clearly, you can tell we are very passionate about that part because we've experienced.
Speaking from experience.
Exactly.
And watching how frustrating
It
can be for the teams that are working within those projects.
Yeah.
So I know they've taken notes, and next time they'll do the right thing.
It also keeps you on check on the timelines to deliver, because when you don't get it right from the onset and you have to go back and co-create, that's, again, if we quantify that in terms of money lost, because those opportunities would have come earlier,
It's true.
we have to fully immerse ourselves. I like what you said. So I think now leaning into AI, what excites you about AI, and pull us in as the magnet.
So what excites me? AI can listen faster, it can understand faster, it can respond better. It will never take the human part of let's say customer experience. Like there are parts of the experiences that must remain human. However, it can help our teams do things much faster. So what excites me about AI, first of all, I like giving the analogy of once upon a time we used to have those box computers, and then today we have laptops and we have phones that we can use in place of those things. It does not change the fact that we still type, we still input some sort of data. It does not change the fact that we still need to send information. Those computers used to open and then you kind of wait for 5 minutes for it to, to come on for you to do whatever you want to do. So in one way, and why that is relevant is because that is what AI is and will be. So we are still in the early stages, mostly, of course, using generative AI. Generative AI is exactly that, generating. That's why you're able to tell it to do for you stuff, write for me this, do this, help me develop. So we are still in the era, majority of us, the place that we are tapping into is the generative AI. Of course, there is a lot going on beyond just generative AI, but in a scale, that is where majority of us are. Being able to do our tasks better, faster. And if I was to think about it from a customer experience angle, it definitely means that it should enable us to do the mundane, repetitive work so that we release time for the human part. So meaning our people will have more time for human. human interactions. For a long time, I was not a fan of chatbots. And I used to have a personal opinion, not a professional one, that they should remain to do FAQs. But I hope that AI now is making them better. If you remember, without mentioning companies, but you try every time you'll be interacting with those chatbots, and it was in the early years when they were just starting to use AI to get it to support. But half the time it will just not get our language, and majority of the people would still end up falling back. The other days, I saw another complaint of someone saying, have banks over digitized to an extent that we are losing that human touch. So that tells us that either way, even with technology developing, even with the super capabilities that AI can give us, we still need to leave room for human interactions. So I think it's how then as in the CX profession, how do we then make sure that as we are mapping out our experience journey, our journeys, then we are very clear on what parts of that journey that tech can support us, do better. So then, as opposed to someone sitting at a contact center and doing manual reports for 5 hours, wouldn't it have been better to make a couple of phone calls to people maybe who needed explanation on something and build that human connection?
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. AI should come in to help the human, but not to eliminate that human interaction. Free up time for the human to have more human interactions.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Absolutely.
I think when you look at where we are now, and thanks for the recap of where we're from with the computer, it reminded me of a keynote Richie gave, where he talked about we had a torch, we had a camera, we had so many gadgets, and now they are all in one, your smartphone.
Yeah.
And it was a memorable keynote because, it really spoke about where we are now. So it helps you appreciate some of the things that have changed with time. So what do you feel it is that we've made simpler for customers within the last 5 years since AI came on?
I think one, access to information, like at a touch of a button, because the frustrations that used to be there, like with the bots, have much significantly reduced. So number one, it's because they can now easily put their FAQs. There are all those knowledge management that is being done by AI. So meaning an organization can have 100 products and still be able to sort within the shortest time. So that means that it's the opportunity of giving more value within a shorter time. Before it would have been, Richie, will call you back. And then Richie will be waiting for that call back for a long while. But the fact that even if it's a contact center conversation, because of knowledge management using AI, you can easily, as he's talking, some of them can even detect, like we all have all sort of this, but the truth is that majority of the organizations still have legacy issues. So it's gonna be a journey. But there are people who there are organizations that are already there because maybe they had the advantage of they came in the tech era, and so even the technology that they have. So that is one. Using things like knowledge management that is powered by AI to be able to sort out customers. And again, going back to support, being able to have better conversations. I think bots are becoming much better in knowing when to transition, because the biggest frustration used to be when you're asking and it's not understanding, and every time you type, it's telling you, how can I help you today? So you tell it, how can I help you today? That used to be one of the biggest frustrations, like not being able to decode at what point then am I handing over this to humans. And of course, there's a lot of workflows that people are managing to automate, managing with all the social media conversations, for example, that happen. Before, a majority of the organizations used to outsource such services for a company to monitor for them what social media listening. Right now, at a touch of a button, there are tools that you can listen, being able to respond to all those simultaneously. So meaning the reality of omni-channel support is becoming a reality, because now the customer does not need to come on a digital platform, and then you almost want them to finish and then come call contact center to say, so they can give support. And on the back end of it, that is on the employee side, that makes it easier, because as I'm looking at my dashboard, I can see conversations coming in from customers, and it doesn't matter from which channel. It means I'm also able to support, and just many other. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface.
No, not
We are
yet.
not yet. Like, we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. But there is a lot of progress that is being done. And talking about legacy, this is a topic I also like, because we all know, congratulations to the organizations that are 100 years. But of course, what that means is that their digital journey is much more complex than a company that started 5 years ago. Because every time they have to think, you can imagine, once upon a time we used to do data cleanup. That meant going back to customers to ask them, can you update your emails? Can you update your phone numbers? And if AI is feeding off data, and hence our data needs to be clean. How, if on the technical side, how infrastructure used to be done, data infrastructure used to look different. And now they have to start making other decisions, and those decisions are not cheap. So like, there is a lot of complexity in it, and different organizations will work differently. However, there are a lot of quick wins that majority of the companies are already uptaking.
What I'm hearing is we need to leverage on AI so that we don't leave money on the table. We need to, as CX professionals, think about how can we serve not just the customer, the employee, but also the stakeholder. Because if we're able to listen to customers faster, it means we won't be engaging them after they've left. And so we won't be losing out on that revenue that they'll be bringing into the organization. So back to experience, So I think, Richie, from the tech aspect and automation, what should organizations do to balance automation with human engagement?
Automation should come to remove friction between the organization and the customers, but it doesn't come to remove the humanity. So we should be thinking mostly around not automating everything, but automating the right things. So the repetitive stuff, like Anne was saying, the mundane tasks the easy tasks that customers have to do with us, things like service requests, transactions, raising a complaint, for instance, maybe confirming a certain task has been completed, checking for validation around certain things, to do with either your product or your account, then those should be things that automation could help to, first of all, increase the speed at which we respond, and then also increase the accuracy, because then with automation, also it removes that human element of I will translate your question in a certain way and I'll respond depending on how I understood it. So for the simpler tasks, repetitive tasks, service requests, things that don't require a lot of thought process, those ones should ideally be automated. However, there are some things that require a more human connection. For instance, if a customer has been defrauded, you don't leave them to a bot to keep engaging with them. If a customer is trying to make a difficult decision around maybe taking health insurance, yes, you can use automation to send them a quote. You can be able to send them the different options that you have, but that ultimate decision requires a human connection. And I think that's why now the handoff between our automated processes and our human connections or engagements come in. So I think that's majorly it. We just need to look at how do we ensure that we optimize for the and if you look at the traffic, if you just do an analysis of any one who's in the service industry, the most engagements that they receive are on repetitive things, basic inquiries, and those are things that maybe you can automate and hand them over. but ensure that anything that has to do with a requirement for empathy, a requirement for deeper understanding and insights on what is this customer feeling, you can never automate that. You can automate the tasks, but leave the emotions to the actual human.
Well said. And I like that clear demarcation on what we should and shouldn't automate. Who do you feel should own automation in view of what you've said? Because if it's tech driven, it will be a very, tech conversation, the empathy bit. Who needs to own it? Let me not lead you on. Who should
I think it's
own?
cross-functional. So we can't, if we leave it to tech, the understanding of automation will be different. It will be around automation of tasks and completion. So they'll look at how fast are we completing tasks, and how well are we eliminating any errors that are happening within the system environment. But then if you come to customer experience, us will bring in what is the customer feeling? What is the customer being informed? How is the customer being treated when they are interacting with our platforms or our touch points? So it should be cross-functional. There are various use cases. So depending on what the use case is, then there should be an owner. I believe that the ownership should be very, very clear. From a servicing perspective, we have the teams that are servicing customers on the back end. So if we feel that certain processes need to be automated, then we should own that end to end. However, we'll require a lot of support from the business processing team, from the technology team, to just help us put all of that together. We can define our needs, but then the automation team, the IT team should then be in the room to help us now translate those requirements into actual technical deployments.
Well said.
Yeah.
I think CX needs to collaborate and work hand in hand with quite a number of teams, tech being one of
100%.
them.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about other teams that should come in during an innovative initiative we're having at work. And I was like, those are conversations we need to start having today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In design thinking, there's something called stakeholder mapping. It's a very important tool, and a lot of people probably just skim through it. They're like, it's one of the things I need to tick off, so I'll just document my own things there. But it's a tool that people should really pay attention to, because if you map out your stakeholders correctly, then you can be able to know, who do I make sure that they have to be in the room when we're having this discussion? Who should I make sure that they're informed of what changes we're supposed to do? And then also it helps you to identify who are the decision makers. Because yes, you can go do a full workshop, come up with very clever resolutions and initiatives and recommendations on how to sort out a problem. But if the decision maker was not involved, then you have to go through a long, tedious journey of, first of all, and explaining to them why we need this, and explaining to them why they were not involved in the first place. So it's better to just map out your stakeholders early, know who you need in the room, know who makes the decisions, know who's going to support you in the implementation, who's going to actually hold the initiative at the point where you have already rolled it out, and run with it as an operational task. So you have to have that view, and it's the only way then you can be able to deploy faster and also deploy in the correct way.
Perfect. You have named the teams without naming them. There's some names we don't say out loud, like risk and compliance and audit. Please, welcome. And legal, welcome. We want to co-create with you. So I think we can switch to trust and ethics, and because we talked about the human aspect, efficiency, what do you feel remains a key ingredient for organizations as they deploy AI around trust and ethics?
So one, we have different guidelines when it comes to AI, and of course EU, just like they had very strong data expectations, they have the same guidelines around AI. So several countries have, but what is clear is that the basics of AI being ethical is that it has to be fair, that fairness. Some of the data that we are using, for example, some of it could be historical with some sort of biases here and there. Well, I know those examples might not be very heavy here in Kenya, but I hope you get what I mean. That some places could have a lot of data bias, and AI feeds on data. And so the data that we are feeding it is what will determine how it learns and what it learns to do, how it learns to make decisions. And so first, it means that we have to make sure that our data sets are clean enough. Now, there are other expectations. I mean, right now we have all these tools that we are using within the generative part of it. And I know organizations that have gone ahead and sort of gotten a corporate package. But now the guardrails that they have to put, some of those tools remain tools that can just help you to do the basics, the write emails and do, because you cannot, upload what, you cannot do what. So I've seen them.
Yes.
And so it continues and will continue to be a big conversation. But I think the more organizations adopt it more at a corporate level, as opposed to me trying to get my work tasks done faster, it means people will bypass all those securities, because then I can just go to my ChatGPT, do whatever I want to do, or my other tools, and do whatever I need to do. So the moment it's adopted at a corporate level, I believe that there'll be more intention in thinking about security and what does this mean within our four walls. But also, I would assume that even the players in the market, that is the owners of the tools, that it's something they have to continuously think, because some of the most powerful tools, it will take, different organizations have different risk levels.
Yes.
Financial services is one of the most sensitive. And so I would imagine for them to adopt some of this tool, it will take extra effort as opposed to a manufacturer adopting. So that is a part of what I think. But over and above, within those guidelines that are there, like for example, there's expectation to, all those tools have to store data. Just like in data, you have to store data within, is it 7 years, or did that change? It used to be 7 years.
7 years, yeah.
7 years.
For Kenya.
So, yes. So the same thing is that these tools are also expected to keep history. But then how can it keep my history without Richie knowing what I'm doing with my tool? You know what I mean? So there are all those conversations, and the fears will continue being. But it's for us to, internally, because we'll get to a point where majority of the organizations are using their own data. I know right now majority of the companies still might not have too much data to do, or rather adequate data to do what they do, either because the data is dirty, not because it's not available, but because of all those other complexities we spoke about. But how do we then make sure that when we are deploying these models within our workplaces or within the business environment, how do we make sure that it will do the things it's meant to do? It will be fair, it will not have biases, it will be secure, meaning your information will not be accessible, right? It will be responsible, because I think a while back, when one of those tools was very new, there was that conversation about it telling a child's, I will not say it on camera, but yeah, misadvising to an extent that they can cause self-harm, So it's all those things. So how do we make sure? I do not have the answer in short. That's one of the things I'm trying to say. But it's a complex thing that we still have to keep figuring out. But I know that our tech people and compliance and legal are somewhere looking at those fine prints to see how we can adopt, because these tools need to come and make our life easy. But the tools that are developed now within the environment, then those ones become an easy conversation, because then you have full control of everything. So I think maybe it's also good to separate the two types of tools. Those ones that you build within your environment, it becomes easy, you have full control of what happens because it's within your environment. But then those others that are out there, So I don't have the answer, but it's something that will continue to be a continuous conversation.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It continues even for the human aspect, especially bias, because it's really, really unconscious to some degree. I think we've really explored where experience management is heading. I'd like for us to bring it back to what organizations can begin to do today to drive return on experience. So I think just practical takeaways from both you and Richie. If an organization wanted to begin its return on experience journey today, where should it start?
First of all, I think it would be useful for the organization to get a good understanding of where are we. So we have the organizations like Anne was saying that are 100 years old. You have a legacy that is behind you. And it's very important to respect that. Look at what then can we be able to do with the current setup that we have. You have the organizations that are digital first. So the fintechs, telcos also came in with a lot of technology. So you'll find that their data is more or less clean from the onset. And so they don't have a lot of issues with the past on how they collected customer data, how they collected a lot of information that is now becoming more and more relevant as you continue to automate. So finding that grounding of where are we now, and then moving away from the thinking that you have to put together an entire transformation project and do big bang to be able to automate. I think a lot of organizations have failed because of just the scale at which they are trying to automate. So it would be good to first understand where you are and then start small. Look at practical use cases that would actually, so look at something that is actually impacting on your efficiency as an organization, and it's and also has a lot of impact on the customer. Something that will have a double edge in its sense. So if you're able to pick out one thing that can be able to improve your efficiency and also have a big impact on the customer, start with that. Look at how that goes. Automate that, bring in the AI capability, and see how are you able to translate value out of that. And then once you've been able to show value out of the initiative, then now start to scale. That's how I would approach it.
Thank you. And well said. A strategic approach, operational approach, and cultural approach. What about you, Anne?
I don't think I'll say any different from how Richie has said it.
Yeah.
One of the things is that we have to be very intentional in how we even map our journeys, because it's from the journeys, it's one of the tools that should help us to make decisions. So that as we are making decisions, what we're asking ourselves is that in this journey, are there tasks that we can automate? Are there tasks that AI can make easier? Are there tasks? So it will start with a task before we move. So if we were to be diligent in how we do this, because I know sometimes people sit and do their journeys on the desk. It's not fact-based. We need to do proper research, meaning we need to use data. So they need to be journeys that are data-led, and then use those journeys to make these decisions. Then because the journey is so clear, you can see end to end, then you're able to pick out, are there tasks, are there workflows that within this journey that you can automate? So if you are to do that for each and every, whether it's customer type or however your organization is wired, you can imagine that forms a base of what Richie is saying is you already have sort of a baseline to start, and then you build. And for those ones who are still cleaning data, don't give up. It's been done elsewhere. It's doable, but there are still tasks that are outside data that you can still use AI to make your life easy. Yeah. It's about me as I'm looking at my day-to-day. Are there parts of my work that can be transferred to use technology to make it easier?
Well said.
Yeah.
We really need to leverage on data. It is a key driver to the decisions we make and must be the basis of that.
Yeah.
So we'd like to throw in a mix into this conversation. Just some simple questions. I know we did this, we're team 844. I checked and confirmed. We would be given a statement, no sooner had than complete. And you're meant to write 2.5 pages. So just complete for me the sentence.
Yeah.
It's very short. So I'll start with you. And return on experience is measured by?
Is measured by numbers. Measure is numbers. So I'm
The
not
measure
wrong.
is numbers.
Yeah, and because we spoke about, when we started speaking about the measures, we were talking about trust. We are talking about ease of doing business. So it's actual numbers. I stand by my answer.
Okay. Richie, the most underrated CX capability today is?
I would say governance, journey governance.
Yes.
So we have a lot of people that you can say organizations now are very well aware about customer journeys. They're aware about design thinking. They're aware about VOC and all the other terminologies that come with enhancing experience. But governance is the thing that is missing. Who owns the customer journey? Who follows up on the initiatives that have come out of a workshop? Who tracks the ROX, as you've said, and ensures that benefits are realized as per the plan? And who continuously ensures that we continue to improve on our customer journeys and we enhance our journeys as and when technology changes, customer expectations shift, and any other environmental change happens. So we need to set a way in which, and I know most of organizations really don't have CX governance, and I think it's become a very key requirement just to make sure that we have a certain framework in which we operate. If you operate in multiple licenses or countries, how do you make sure that there's a certain standard across those? That means that you have to be able to govern the journeys that are documented, first of all, which journeys are critical. Otherwise everyone will think one thing is critical in this market, another thing is not critical. So you have to set the standard. Once you've done that, then who then makes sure that implementation, once you've finished the workshop, guys are excited, they've left the room, who then tracks? Because then that's the biggest point of failure for most customer journey practitioners. You don't have enough bandwidth or even support to ensure that the initiatives are implemented. And then lastly, benefits. Who is going to track on those benefits? And I think then that governance layer is very critical for customer experience. Just make sure that whatever efforts you're putting in at the top are translated to value, which again is what we're discussing today.
We need a masterclass. We need a full day workshop.
Yeah.
One more for you, Anne. One AI myth that leaders need to stop believing is?
That AI will come and take over your life and help you with all your problems. Some of those problems are very human. So sort them in a human way. It's meant to support.
Yes.
AI will not come and then you're like, take over. In fact, I think we've had those conversations where there are people very excited. They were, in fact, now I'll cut 3/4 of my contact center because AI can do. Let me tell you, we are still in the business of humans, and that will not go away. So we have to strike that balance. Where do we bring AI and where does human remain? It's not going for, it just means, like we said, you're freeing time for them to be more human.
Human will never go away.
To never go away.
Well said. And one more for you, Richie. Employee experience matters because?
Because employees cannot give what they don't have.
You cannot serve an empty glass from an empty glass.
Thank you. You cannot give from an empty glass.
We need to empower our employees. We need to make sure that the employees are comfortable enough, motivated enough, empowered enough to be able to deliver the experience that we expect them to deliver to our customers. And enablement is very critical. So as we continue to move more and more into implementation of new technologies, new tools, then how are the employees trained to use those tools? How do we reduce the number of platforms they have to log into for them to support? Unification of platforms, so that then they are able to just focus and be able to use one point of view that can then give them access to anything that they need to give to the customer.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
That is, you do not want a burnt out employee because of systems and controls you've put in place.
Exactly.
To safeguard the interest of the organization, forgetting that of the customer. And that really is the future of service excellence, Anne and Richie. So I'll give you each 1 second. One. I have to be very specific because we've had a very rich conversation. But if there's one thing you'd want our listeners to remember today, what would it be?
Human remains. Technology will come and support us, but it will never take away the human parts of service delivery that are required. Like Richie said, you cannot out digitize an angry customer, a customer who is good. Because remember, these are people with the lived lives. They are going through life out there. So the human part will always remain.
Well said, empathy. And what about you, Richie?
I think for me, the ROX era is a call to organizations to stop treating experience as a department and treat it as an organizational capability and a discipline. So the same way we look at audit, for instance, accounting, the way we look at credit, experience management needs to be seen as a discipline in the organization and given the right level of authority for the experiences to be managed and also to be governed in the right way. So the organizations that will win in future, honestly, are those that will give experience management a seat at the table when it comes to the board level, for the C-suite level, and they start to understand that experiences actually bring value to the organization, not only from the soft skills and the nice to haves, but also direct value to the bottom line.
You've closed it out well, Richie. Experience is not a support function, it is a growth strategy. And so as we strive to succeed in the experience era, we really need to focus on intentionally designing experiences for customers, empowering employees to deliver them, and leveraging in technology in ways that strengthen rather than replace, back to Anne's comment, the human connection, because it must stay there. So thank you so much to our amazing, amazing guests, Anne Nyachomba and Richie Sobayeni. Your insights have been really, really insightful. And thank you to our listeners for joining in to today's conversation.